So Gary, can you talk about the again the history of Neustar and how it's able to gather this data and curate this data in such a way that it's actionable for carriers?
Absolutely. Well, our roots go back to number portability. We were awarded the contract for number portability a number of years ago, and so we became a trusted source of information for the entire carrier infrastructure in the United States. Since then, we've used that basic DNA in terms of trust, neutrality, be able to work with differing companies that are all trying to create some kind of a common moving towards a common goal. We've extended that to internet, so we maintain the domain naming system associated with about 20% of the internet traffic. We also have done that for ultraviolet, where we are the information exchange that glues together the large studios and the retailers and the CDN providers associated with that as well. And in essence, we've built a whole business around information exchanges. Now, those information exchanges contain authoritative data that can be used to kind of verify information that's floating around in other places. And that's how we built some of the more interesting the analytics pieces that we've come. We've taken those information that's coming from a number of different places, whether they be public, whether they be private, or whether they be commercial, and correlated that together with that underlying authoritative data so that it actually becomes not only actionable but believable. We then present that up in a number of different ways, both real time and also in reports that can help our customers focus in on the problems they're trying to solve and use that information to solve those problems.
So we're at the Competitive Carrier Association meeting in Las Vegas in 2013. Where are the competitive and rural carriers in terms of adopting some of these tools and really being able to make use of the data? Would you say in the first inning, fifth inning? Kind of where are they?
Probably second inning. I think most of the carriers that are trying to deal with moving their infrastructure forward, trying to move out of the 3G into the 4G market, and that's very capital intensive, so they've got to worry about that. Using the kind of analytics that we would talk about would be focusing in on their internal processes first to kind of free up that capital so that they can make the move to the next stage. I think more of the more interesting kind of applications that they can provide and the deepening relations with their customers are going to come when they're kind of in that IP world, and they can take the traditional text and voice and combine that with other things to make some really interesting applications that are really sticky for their customers.
Well, many of the rural carriers and say tier 2 through 4 tier carriers typically have a lot of homegrown systems or they've built their own systems or are using outsourced systems that may be 10, 15 kind of years old. Mm-hmm. What are some of the specific challenges that they're going to have migrating to be in a position to take advantage of some of the data correlation that you're talking about?
Well, a couple of things, right? So bringing those systems in-house tend to be very capital intensive, right? Because they've got to bring it, they've got to buy software, they've got to put it into their data centers, they've got to do all of that kind of stuff. We tend to try and alleviate that by offering those in the cloud and secure clouds in the managed service, right? So take that capital off the table, right? The second thing is they have to worry about how they're going to get all this information together and how they categorize it so that it can actually be put into any kind of a new capability. And you need to have people that understand the data and understand how to work with it to help make that happen. So look for somebody who's got some kind of advisory services, some kind of assessment services that can help kind of work through that, because that's an important part of this is the planning up front.
And in terms of adopting and implementing, what do you see as some of the key milestones for the competitive carriers in terms of really being able to adopt this and implement it?
Well, again, I think the first thing is get your hands around your data, understand what you have and where it's at, understand which pieces of that data are the authoritative pieces, and then use that to build your strategy around. And then run some kind of an assessment against your operation and figure out the priorities in terms of what you want to do. For many of the competitive carriers, it's going to be focused inward first, because that seems to be how that works. Get your own house in order and then look for how you can leverage that data to either grow the business or create secondary sources of revenue.
Gary, thanks for your time.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Perfect.